What is it about zombies that makes them so scary? I mean, they're slow, they're stupid, they don't have claws or sharp teeth or weapons. You'd probably have a better chance against a zombie than you would a grizzly bear. A zombie grizzly bear, on the other hand, is just more than I care to imagine. If it comes to that, just lay down and take your medicine. So, why are zombies so scary? It's pretty simple. Let's say your mom is infected. She looks like your mother, she's dressed like your mother, but her essence, who she is gone. Instead of making you dinner, she wants to eat your brain. She still has her senses, but she has lost her individual mind. She can't be reasoned with. She can't be convinced. She is part of a collective now, and replication is her only drive. You may think this is the least likely scenario to bring about the end of days, but I contend that it is the most likely. You see, throughout human history, the single most destructive and history-altering force is the mob. Not the Tony Soprano mob, the torches and pitchfork mob. When hive mind takes over, reason and facts have no place. Humans will have gladly traded critical thought for a sense of power and belonging. They always have and they always will. And a human without reason is a dangerous thing. For all intents and purposes, it's a zombie. You get a group of them together, rile them up with some bullshit, and watch the magic happen. Turns out you really don't need a zombie and fungus to strip a human of their humanity. They'll hand it right over just to stay in the us crowd. And when that happens, the them crowd better lock and load or get moving. If you choose to bug out, you're gonna need a vehicle that can maneuver through the Walking Dead and get you and your family to safety. You can't count on gas stations, parts stores, or paved roads. So you're gonna need something special, like the Land Rover Series 3. This is contestant number 8 out of 15 in the End of Days report. I just finished the research, and the test scores are in. And I gotta admit, I didn't have a lot of faith in English engineering before this report. I once owned an MG. Enough said. Now let's see if the Brits got it right this time, or if Hollywood just loves the classic safari look.
There's a storm on the mountain, there's a hell on the highway, the desert's like an ocean, the sky's like a minefield. I can feel the earth shaking beneath my feet. I'm just looking for a new life, and it sure ain't easy, but I gotta believe that I'm on my way. Oh, I'm on my way.
The Land Rover Series 3. You may remember it from 2 James Bond movies with 2 different James Bonds. The series Land Rovers, as they were known, have a lot in common with the James Bond series actually. First of all, they're British. Secondly, the actor changed over the years, but the character stayed basically the same. That describes the series Land Rovers to a T. Since they came onto the scene in 1948, Series 1, 2, and 3 Land Rovers were all known for their versatility and their modular construction. They were designed to operate without logistical support, and that's what the End of Days report is all about. On the outside, they didn't change much from series to series. They were obviously inspired by the Willys Jeep, but they were definitely not copies. The body panels were made of Bermabrite, an aluminum magnesium alloy. Now this stuff is highly rust resistant, and each piece can be removed or replaced individually with a simple screwdriver and wrench set. Land Rover used aluminum out of necessity, but it worked. There were piles of aluminum ore left over after World War II, but steel was still being rationed due to reconstruction efforts across Europe. There were some drivetrain variants over the years though, so I had to identify the best overall option, the Apex drivetrain as I call it here. Of the 3 models, I chose the Series 3 from 1980 to 1985. It was Land Rover's final refinement, and it was still completely analog. It came in 2 wheelbase options, the 88-inch and the 109. I'm going to choose the 109 for payload and operational capacity, but I'm going to throw in some video clips of the 88 for visual comparison. So, who's out and why? First to go, the 2.6-liter inline-six gasoline motor, or as they would say, petrol. Although it offers more torque, its inlet over exhaust head design is prone to warping. Also, it's rare, so replacement parts would be really hard to find. Next into the bin, as they say across the pond, is the 3.5-liter V8 gasoline engine. It was disqualified for its poor gas mileage and complicated dual carburetor system. The 2.25-liter gasoline 3-main bearing engine was disqualified. The 3 main bearing crankshafts just don't have enough bearing support. They're susceptible to fatigue and whip under heavy loads, especially when vibrating from the use of unrefined alternative fuels. Finally, all automatic transmissions disqualified, as always, for prissiness. So that narrows it down to the apex candidate. It's the 1980 to 1985 Land Rover Series 3 with the long wheelbase, the 2.25-liter 5-main bearing diesel engine, and the LT76 all-synchro mesh transmission and transfer case. All 3 were designed and manufactured in-house by Land Rover. I'm pretty excited to be reviewing our first diesel. I expected a bigger showing from diesel engines in this competition, but a lot of them had flaws that I couldn't overlook. So let's take a look at the individual categories and see how this one scored. First, engine durability, 86.83. The diesel motor is reliable, but only for 180,000 miles, then it needs an overhaul. Not a great start. The transmission is the same story. It only scored a 70.37 because it needs a bearing and synchro overhaul every 100,000 miles. The gear-to-gear transfer case scored better, an 85.35. Before we move on from the drivetrain, though, I discovered something about the Land Rover drivetrain that I haven't seen yet. The design of the selectable four-wheel drive system makes bypassing a front axle failure relatively straightforward. Because the vehicle does not use a center differential, it uses a mechanical dog clutch to lock the front and rear outputs together in the transfer case. Well, you can completely isolate the front drivetrain and run exclusively on rear-wheel drive. If a front axle, differential, or CV joint fails in the field, the driver can revert to rear-wheel drive to limp to safety. That's pretty cool. Readiness took a 25-point hit. If you let the Series 3 overheat, the block will probably crack. So you're going to have to be really proactive about cooling maintenance. That's worth 10. But when you throw in the short engine and transmission lifespans, you get the full minus 25. Four-corner leaf springs score 76. Almost all of the contestants have scored the same. Steering complication, a perfect 100 here. It uses a recirculating ball system. Another perfect score in EMP resistance. Once this thing starts, it doesn't need any electricity to stay running. The parts are going to be scavengeable. The Series 3 shared a lot of parts with its other series members, and there are still a lot of aftermarket rebuild kits and accessories available as well. Kinetic reach, operational capacity, and miles per gallon have been challenges for a lot of the contestants. Most of them scored in the 40s. The Land Rover scored an impressive 63.43. So even though it tops out at only 55 miles per hour, it can go 480 miles before refueling. It gets an amazing 24 miles per gallon, and it has generous payload and towing capacities. It scored a 50 in alternative fuels. It can run on filtered biodiesel, but not on wood, propane, or liquid natural gas. It scored a 90 in field maintainability. This vehicle was actually designed to be maintained in the field. Everything is analog. 4 hydraulic drum brakes, no front discs. Heat and mud get trapped in drums, so that scores a 62. As always, we end with PTO availability, where the Land Rover scores another perfect 100. It has 3 PTOs in a very user-friendly configuration. So what's the score and its position on the leaderboard? I actually ran the numbers a second time when I saw the FTO. It didn't seem right, but it was. The Land Rover Series 3 scored high where others scored low, and low where others scored high. But when you average all 17 categories, you get a score of 87.53. That puts the Land Rover in first place. Yes, there was actually a time when a Land Rover was a beast, not just a Coachella status symbol. The Series 3 was slow, and you're going to have to keep your tools out for regular maintenance, but it is in first place by design. This Land Rover is a product of the World War II mindset. The questions we're asking about cars in this series were obvious in 1948. Survivability was not just a concept, it was put to the test in the real world almost every day. The Series 3 was built by a country that had first-hand experience with civilian to military crossover. It was British fishing boats, after all, that came to the rescue in Dunkirk. The Land Rover was designed to do its part in the next conflict. That mentality is evident in the final score. The tests reward well-roundedness. Without them, I don't think I would have recognized the greatness here. The mediocre engine and transmission durability would have thrown me off the scent, and I wouldn't have been patient enough to let the full story come out. Well, this is the headline to that story. Brits show Yanks a thing or two about four-wheel drives. How do you like them apples? Well, if you did like these apples and you think you might want another bite, make sure to like and subscribe. I'm going to be putting out about one of these a week. You know, I'm just trying to have a little fun while the world falls down around me. So tell me why this analysis is bullshit down in the comments. I'll lose no sleep over it, so let it all out. Any attention is good intention, right? Anyway, this has been Casey Jones for the End of Days Report. Thanks for riding along.